Alright, how's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac, and here with a video on a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a very long time. And that movie is Iron Man 1, a movie that came out all the way back in 2008, 15 years ago. It's insane, mind boggling, honestly. But I'm gonna give my opinions and thoughts on it after having just watched it like probably an hour ago, honestly. And I can't wait. First, I'm gonna go into the non spoilers. So, the non spoilers, this movie is cool. I really enjoyed it, honestly. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like the CGI for it being 2010 really holds up, at the very least for the suits. Anything else, it's alright, but the suits themselves look really good for the time period that they're in, right? And granted, this is it's incomparable to what we have now, where things just look real at this point. But man, it looks passable enough to be like, you know what, that looks good. That doesn't look crusty at all. The story, I thought it was good. It's so integral to the characters, so I kind of consider like the character development and the story to be two and two. But it was good. It was good for being one of the first ones. The characters themselves, I thought they were good. The main character himself obviously being the best one because he got the most attention. But his supporting cast being funny, being charming, I feel like these jokes, honestly, they were hitting for me. But overall, they it was cool. I was enjoying it for sure. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. Let me get into the spoilers. So, as per usual, if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this movie, please leave so you don't get anything like that. Go watch the movie, and if you want to come back, then hey, my video will always be here, right? And I'm not gonna say like, oh, it's 15 years old. Why haven't you watched it yet? I haven't watched it yet until today, so I can't say anything. And that argument's always been iffy to me, but that's a whole different thing. So this is your warning. But going into it, this movie is about Tony Stark, Iron Man, the titular character, and how he became Iron Man. And we start off with him and Stark Industries and how it's a weapons manufacturer, and he's in Afghanistan right now. He's going with the soldiers. He was doing a weapons demonstration, and Tony Stark doesn't care, right? That man is making a profit. He's selling weapons, and he's just the guys is we're selling it to protect the United States, right? And to stop evildoers from doing evil things. And so he's as far from it as possible. He's making the product. People are the ones using it, right? And so when he sees it firsthand in Afghanistan, he comes to a realization that like Stark Industries is selling to anybody. They're a non-discreet weapons dealer who sells to anybody that gives them enough money. And so when he sees some of the Afghan terrorists using Stark Industries weapons against U.S. soldiers, he starts seeing like, yo, it's a lie, it's a front, it's not working. What is this? And so he gets kidnapped by the Afghan terrorists and he's held there for 3 months, right? He's tortured, he's beaten, and the main goal is to have Tony make the Jericho missile that he demonstrated in the beginning of the movie. And so him and Jinsen, which there's another guy locked there, were forced to build it. But Tony had other plans. That he built the first Mark 1 Iron Man suit. And it's all gray, it's all bulky. It looks like they're not the 80s, the 40s one. It's crazy, right? But we get lore on this too. Howard Stark made the atom bomb in this universe in World War II. Unfortunately, he passed away, and Tony had to take up the mantle next to Obadiah Stane, who was Howard's partner. And so they've been together for a long time now. Tony makes the suit after 3 months. Him and Jinsen manage to escape, but Jinsen gets shot trying to make that escape route for Tony. So he's dead. And then Tony manages to get out, and US soldiers manage to find him, right? And so everybody thought he was dead. Luckily, he managed to get out because of his ingenuity and wit. And that's one thing about the movie that I love that they do is that they show how much of an a-hole Tony Stark really is. Because even after he sees the weapons and all that, he changes his moral goal, but his personality is still that of like, I'm Tony Stark. I have a lot of money. I can do whatever I want, right? And you see that throughout the entire movie. He has a lot of wit. He has a lot of snarky remarks, and overall, he's not a good person, but he's trying to be a good person. and you see that change go out throughout the movie, right? So once he's found by the soldiers, he does a press conference. Where he's like, "Yo, we're not making weapons anymore. Stark Industries is going clean." And everybody, of course, is like, "Yeah, but how's that going to solve the issue of the past, right?" And Tony, at the end of the day, he understands that he can't. So he's just trying to change the future so that isn't their reputation anymore. And you can view it as reputation. You can view it as him trying to clean his conscience, which it is what he's doing. But at the end of the day, he is trying to make a change for the better. And while that may not do much for the present, it will do something for the future. It's good intentions. And there's one thing, there's a quote I saw, or it's hell is paved with a road of good intentions, or something like that. And this is what it's reminding me of, you know. Once he comes back and he does the press conference and announces that announcement, Obadiah and him have a chat. Obadiah is completely against this, and we learn more about Obadiah later on. But for right now, Tony comes back. Him and Pepper, which is his assistant, if you know Tony's comics, then you know who she is. And Rhodey, Hughes on the Air Force. If you know Tony's comics, you know who he is as well. But he starts building the Mark II suit because he's gonna take justice into his own hands like he's a vigilante, right? Because he is a vigilante at this point. And so he's building the suit. Him and Pepper, they're getting closer and closer. And you have this one press conference. Tony wasn't invited, and we find out that Obadiah, he had a meeting with the board of, you know, the board meeting or whatever. And he tells Tony like, "Yo, I'm the one that voted for you to get kicked off of the board, you know, for your own good." It was not for his own good. We find out later on that Obadiah had Tony kidnapped and wanted him dead. He wanted him to die by the hands of the terrorists, right? And he was the one that set that up because we see a meeting with him and the terrorists later on in the movie. Tony, after building the Mark II suit, goes out on a joyride to Afghanistan to stop the terrorists that kidnap him, right? So he kills a bunch of them and saves a lot of the refugees. The U.S. Air Force sends a couple of fighter pilots to Tony's location, and it's this whole scene of Rhodey and Tony fighting out about each other, right? And how Tony built the suit. And so Rhodey lets him off the hook even though he destroyed one of the fighter pilot's jets. The pilot is fine. The pilot is completely fine, but the jet is destroyed. So we're learning more about Obadiah. We're learning more about the Air Force and about Pepper and Tony, right? Tony sends Pepper to Stark Industries to get some files from Stane's computer, and Stane finds her. They have a conversation. Obadiah finds out that she took it, and she leaves immediately. And one of the people from Shield is actually there, and her and or excuse me, him and Pepper go. They leave, and she tells him like, "Yo, I need your help." And so Tony's there back at base, and he's just like, "Oh, what's going on?" And Obadiah shows up and paralyzes him completely. It's because it's a weapon that they built that was never approved. And so Obadiah takes Tony's heart reactor, which, by the way, he got that from when he was kidnapped by the terrorists. He had to make a heart monitor for himself, or excuse me, Jensen had to make a heart monitor for him because he was dying. And so if he doesn't have the heart monitor attached to his body, the repulsor beam, he dies. And so Obadiah took this heart monitor because Tony had to make a new one because it was just faulty. And Obadiah takes the new one. Luckily for Pepper, though, she left the old one because Tony was going to throw it out. And she made it as a memory for nostalgia, right? And so he kept it because it was a gift from Pepper. And now that he needs a new one, he uses that one and he uses Mark II and leaves to find Obadiah, right? Pepper goes to find Obadiah as well. Rhodes, Rhodey Rhodes shows up and he's just like, "Yo, what's going on?" And Tony's like, "Stay here and just make sure everything's all straight, right?" Everything goes down back at Obadiah's compound, and it's a fight between those two, right? They have a whole fight in the highway. Everything's going down. Pepper sees Obadiah. It doesn't matter. She can't stop him. And we have this giant climactic battle with Obadiah and Tony up on the rooftop. Pepper electrocutes Obadiah, basically killing him because Tony was like, "Yo, do this, overwrite his suit and everything." And it almost kills Tony, but luckily his heart reactor stays on because plot armor, I guess. I can't really tell you why it did. It just did. But regardless, Tony is alive. Pepper is back, and they're all good. They're gonna have a press conference, and Shield is just basically like, yo, read the cards, do what I say, right? And Tony goes out, he's with Rhodey, and they're just like, yo, I am Iron Man, because one of the people from the beginning of the movie, she is a journalist first and foremost, but she did have sex with him in the beginning, so it's like, I guess it was more for journalistic integrity to get information, but I don't know, it's a bit iffy. But she's just like, yo, so how is this gonna solve anything? And Tony's just like, I'm Iron Man. And then everybody goes nuts. Literally everybody goes insane. And I'm already seeing so many parallels with other movies, or well, more like references, like in the first Spider-Man Tom Holland movie and Shang-Chi as well. Just how the first Iron Man movie really set so many things for this universe, right? Of course, the first Hulk movie was, the beginning of the Marvel MCU, or excuse me, the MCU. That's redundant. It's just it's so cool seeing 15 years ago how they were laying groundwork for other things to be built. And while they probably weren't planning on building or making these movies, like I don't think Marvel ever planned on having Spider-Man the way that they did, or Shang-Chi, but it's cool how having that groundwork can lay out so many things and they reference and know what they're doing with it, right? It's just cool. It's really cool. But this movie, it was fire. I really like Tony's change from ignorant and indifferent and uncaring to he's still the same person personality wise, but he cares more about what his actions are doing. And it reminds me of Iron Man Armored Adventures, how Tony was a kid back then and he was basically like Peter Parker but with money. And here he's an adult, so obviously he knows what's right and wrong. He's built his moral system and he understands, but it's coming to grips with the fact that his actions for the past however many years have caused so much heartache and grief, and he didn't even know it because he wasn't on the front lines. And money can't protect that. Money can't change your soul, seeing it in for like firsthand does that, and it did that for him. So it was nice, and then seeing the corrupt people that haven't seen that yet, because I said it to myself during the movie, like if Obadiah saw what Tony went through, he would understand it. He would probably have a change of heart too. That or he would just get even worse. And I like that change for him overall. I think it's good. And having Pepper there, I wish she had more of a role, honestly, because she is his assistant, and she did do something very important in the movie by ending Stain, basically. But I wish she had more of an important role because you can see the love building between the two. I just wish that we got to see more of her, get to learn more about her. But it is what it is. This is the first foray into this movie, so what can you do? There's only the beginning. Hopefully, the sequels build more upon that. But Rhodes as well. I wish we got to learn more about him. Just the side characters. I wish that we could get more expansion on that. But since the story is so close to home, since this was in the Afghan war and all that with the U.S. and them, it's iffy. It's really iffy because man, that sucks. It really is a topical thing to go into because it was 2008, so it's even more topical then than it is now. And it's true though because Marvel has always been a franchise where they tackle hard topics and topical topics as well, which I think is kind of redundant. But like Spider-Man, or like this, or like back in the World War II era, right? Or Vietnam War, or anything like that, they always tackle it because it's topical and it's meant to address stuff and give people hope in that sense that there's good people and it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad, you can always make a change in the world. So I think that's cool that it still handles that today. Overall, this movie, the soundtrack was alright. It was forgettable for me. I don't remember it. The story, I thought it was good. It was topical. It was interesting. With Black Panther, I didn't mention it, but it was also topical then. And Marvel has continued to do that, and I think that's cool. Whether it has the silly movies like with Thor, or with Guardians of the Galaxy, or with more important movies, like again, Black Panther 1 and 2. I think that it does it well. But overall, this movie was fun. I enjoyed it. It is a 7.5 for me. Character building was good. Story was good. Characters were, as good as they could be. Just overall, it was a fun watch. But that's going to be it for me for now. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next video.